Mynah birds are social, mate-for-life, mimickers, and chatty, especially at dawn or dusk. They interact well with humans and make great pets, especially the hill mynah. Brilliant birds, mynahs can learn to mimic phrases or words. Here's a fun fact from Spruce Pet's website. There are several names for the mynah bird in India. One name, Kalahapraya, means one who is fond of arguments. Mynah birds are also territorial, conniving, and controlling. You can't put them in a cage with other birds because they will attack the others. Mynahs often overtake other bird nests in the wild by removing the eggs. When it comes to recovery from discovering your partner's porn struggles, you can learn some lessons from the mynah bird. First of all, social. The mynah bird needs to be around other mynahs to flourish. This bird doesn't do well in isolation. Neither do people. One of the dangers Dave and I discovered we had lived with for years was isolation. It was difficult to admit the struggle and ask for help. Someone struggling with an addictive problem needs secrecy for the struggle to survive. I've been there too, afraid to reveal my struggle with suicidal depression. But God created you and me to be social creatures, to crave relationships. When we look at the beginning of the Bible in the book of Genesis, where God tells us we're made in His image, He uses the plural us, hinting at the triune God concept. Later, God said it wasn't good for the man, or Adam, to be alone. Even though all the animals, birds, and crawly things had already been created, Adam didn't have anyone just like him. God knew man needed woman and created Eve. Shame fosters secrecy, which kills intimacy. To fully recover, the struggler and their spouse need to partner with another person or persons to gain perspective, counsel, and wisdom. The second thing we can learn from the mynah birds is they mate for life. I found this fascinating. Mynah birds are believed to stay together, one male and one female, throughout their lifespan. But these two mates are also part of a larger mynah community flock. When it comes to recovery after discovering your husband's porn struggle, you might struggle with whether or not your marriage will survive. Dave and I dealt with this too. Honestly, I didn't hold out much hope that we could, or that he could leave the porn behind. Dave desperately wanted to save our relationship. Therefore, he was willing to do whatever was necessary to get help and heal from this pernicious struggle. As God worked on us, He zeroed in on my vows. You can read more about this in my book, Choosing a Way Out, When the Bottom Isn't the Bottom. We'll put a link to that below this video. See, God challenged me to trust Him first to do the work in Dave and me. And then He asked me to believe that He was possible to do what I thought was impossible. But either way, I had a choice. And sometimes I had to make that choice every day. Well, God kept His word. He performed a miracle in Dave, in me, and in our marriage. And I'm so grateful. You might make a different choice, and that choice is between God, you, and your husband. No one else makes it for you. But if you need some professional help processing what's going on right now, I hope you'll reach out by going to KirstenDSamuel.com and clicking the Let's Talk button. The next thing we learned from mynahs is mimic. Mimicry takes practice, lots of practice. For the mynah bird, a human needs to pick a word or a phrase and repeat it over and over so the bird can learn it or mimic it. It's intentional training over a long time. When it comes to betrayal trauma recovery, you choose who you will mimic. Will you choose those who say, forgive your husband and move on? Basically, this choice encourages you to stuff down the unresolved hurt and anger without finding hope or healing, but also adding on shame and confusion. Eventually, that wound will open again with a vengeance. You might follow the pattern of those who tell you to walk away. You're better off without him, they say. Don't spend the time, money, or energy on that loser any longer. You deserve better. Well, this attitude is still another way to stuff the issue and carry your hurt, confusion, and other mess into a new relationship. Some pretend that nothing happened. This thought process involves distancing yourself from the trauma far enough that you don't recognize it happened, or so you think. You rationalize that getting back to normal will restore your peace in your relationship, and it might for a bit, until the next discovery. Or you might recognize that your relationship needs help. It's time for radical change. You decide you will do whatever is necessary to become whole and healed. You want to mimic those who successfully navigated their recovery to a healthy place. The next thing we learned from the mynahs is they're chatty. There are 2 times of day that Dave and I love to chat, dawn and dusk. And it wasn't always that way. When we were first married, Dave liked to stay up later at night than I, while I rose earlier than he. Our kids tell stories of their dad reading books or playing with them after dinner while I cleaned up the kitchen, often falling asleep wherever they were. I can still hear one or another of their voices, "Mom! Dad's asleep again!" To this day, Dave often takes a quick nap around 6:30 p.m. It's like his body needs a mini energy boost, and we joke about this often. During the first years of our recovery from his porn struggle and my depression, our counselor and coaches encouraged us to spend time talking together in the evening. We were instructed to ask each other 2 questions. How are you doing? How are we doing? These open-ended questions provided the impetus for learning more about each other than what happened during the day. But there were some guidelines. First of all, no one-word answers like fine. Answers needed to reflect your thoughts and feelings. We had to ask good follow-up questions, which meant we were actively listening, and then focus on building the intimate connection between each other's heart, mind, and soul. Each person asks the same starting questions to the other. Well, these days, we love watching a sunrise together. Yes, we both rise early now and ease into the day, as Dave says. He sips his coffee while I enjoy my tea. We talk quietly about the coming day, read our Bibles, and pray together. We often use these 2 questions in the evening to springboard our conversation. Each intentional interaction builds our intimacy. And it's funny, we never run out of things to talk about. The next thing we learn from the Mynah bird is territorial. Do you, like the Mynah bird, mark your territory and threaten anyone who tries to enter? This could be a good thing. For instance, if another woman tries to flirt with your husband, you can let her know that he's taken and not to be messed with. But the Mynah bird becomes rather vicious when territorial. It's been known to take over another's territory and clear out the nest. That area didn't belong to the Mynah bird to begin with, but they take over anyway. Getting territorial in recovery can be positive or negative. When you establish healthy personal boundaries, you develop positive ways to interact with yourself, your husband, and others. Many women ask me right out of the gate how they can change their husbands. Unfortunately, that question steps into territory that isn't theirs. The next thing we learn from a Mynah bird is conniving. Has anyone ever poked at you long enough that you exploded? How did you feel? What happened? How did that benefit the relationship? Conniving involves reputation management. When navigating the murky waters of recovery, you might wander into trying to make yourself look better and him worse. For instance, when we first revealed the crisis we faced, I forced my husband to tell the story. After all, he's the one who looked at porn. True, but still conniving. Now that I look back, I realize my motive behind that desire was to paint him in a bad light, make him feel worse than he already did, and help me look more injured. Or that's what I reasoned anyway. All those pokes did was cause more pain and tear apart our relationship. I justified my motives out of a deep wound. I weaponized little pieces of truth against Dave, but I also discovered that those conniving darts only hurt me more. The next thing is controlling. This kind of goes hand in hand with conniving. Mynah birds attack others who get in their space. They police their territory so other birds can't enter. Often, when you experience the devastation from betrayal trauma, you grasp control of everything you possibly can. What is he looking at? Where did he go after work? Did he get to work in the allotted time after leaving home? Who called him? And on and on and on and on it goes. I get it. On those days when I feel vulnerable again, those controlling thoughts flood back in. You become the cop and the mom rather than the wife. Part of the recovery process involves learning to change what you can control, then leaving the rest of it up to God. When I find myself clenching my jaw about something my husband does or doesn't do that I don't think is best, I often practice opening and stretching my hands wide. This action reminds me that I don't control anything but myself. Then I ask God to step into this situation with His solution. The open hands remind me to release what I'm trying to control. Well, we've learned both positive and negative lessons from the Mynah bird. So which of the positive lessons needs some work in your life? Hearing the words, "This does not have to be fatal to your marriage," provided hope for a different future for Dave and me. And after working on what I could change, me, and getting the help we needed, life is so much better. It's not perfect. It's just better. Now look at those negative lessons from the Mynah bird. Where do you struggle the most? In case you couldn't have guessed, mine continues to be control. So I practice that open hand exercise a lot. God reminds me daily that He knows where I am and who I am. He invites me to trust him with even the little irritating things in my life. What do you mimic in this recovery process? Do you struggle to believe that change is possible? I have a free download for you. It's called 11 Shame-Provoking Lies People Tell About Porn Addiction. I hope you'll download it. We've got the link to it below in the notes. Then, if you're still struggling, hop on over to KirstenDSamuel.com, click the button that says Let's Talk, and schedule a free session today. Let me help you take a deep breath.